Honda may have just handed Aston Martin the weapon that could change everything. A new report claims Honda has revealed an engine development worth around 40 horsepower, and in Formula 1, that is not a small upgrade. That kind of game can transform acceleration, overtaking, qualifying, and the entire balance of power. But the real shock is not the number. It is what this could mean for Aston Martin when Honda becomes part of its future, because if this performance is real, one of Formula 1's most ambitious teams may be preparing something far more dangerous than its rivals expected. And there is one crucial detail behind this engine story that changes how we should understand the entire project. Subscribe to the channel. The attached source supports the headline claim about a reported 40 horsepower Honda engine development, but provides no further technical evidence or quotations. 40 horsepower sounds simple until you understand what that number can mean inside a Formula 1 car. Imagine two drivers leaving the same corner at almost the same speed. Both press the throttle at the same moment. Both cars have strong grip. Both drivers make no visible mistake. For the first few meters, there is almost nothing between them. Then, one car begins to move ahead. Not dramatically, not like a road car racing something much slower. The difference builds little by little every second the driver stays on full power. By the end of the straight, that small advantage can decide who attacks, who defends, and who reaches the next corner under pressure. That is why the reported 40 horsepower figure has created so much attention. But there is an important warning. The source describes this as a new Honda engine development worth around 40 horsepower. It does not provide full testing data, detailed technical evidence, or an official explanation showing exactly where that gain comes from. So the number should not be treated as a guaranteed advantage on the racetrack. And that distinction matters more than it first appears. An engine can produce more power in controlled conditions, but a Formula 1 car must use that power across an entire race weekend. It must survive practice, qualifying, and the Grand Prix. It must work in extreme heat. It must cooperate with the battery, the cooling system, the gearbox, and the rear tires. More power is only useful when the rest of the car can handle it. Think of it like putting a much stronger engine inside a small boat. The extra force may push the boat forward faster, but only if the hull remains stable and the driver can control it. If everything around that engine is not designed correctly, the extra strength can create new problems instead of solving old ones. And this is where Aston Martin's situation becomes fascinating. Honda is not simply being discussed as another supplier delivering an engine and walking away. The entire idea carries much greater expectations. Aston Martin wants to become more than a team fighting for occasional opportunities. It wants the structure, the technology, and the control needed to challenge at the front. That ambition changes how this report should be understood. Because a possible 40 horsepower gain is not just about reaching a higher speed on one straight, it could influence how the entire car is designed. More available power can give engineers choices. They may be able to use aerodynamic settings that create more grip in corners, even if those settings also create more resistance on the straights. Normally, that resistance slows the car down, but stronger power can help recover some of the speed that would otherwise be lost. In simple terms, the team may not have to choose so painfully between cornering grip and straight-line performance. That sounds like a technical detail. It is not. That choice affects qualifying. It affects overtaking. It affects tire wear. It affects how confidently a driver can attack a corner while another car is close behind. And when every team is searching for tiny improvements, one advantage can quietly create several others. But this is also where the pressure begins. Aston Martin's future will not be judged by the size of one reported engine number. It will be judged by whether the team can combine every major part of the project at exactly the right moment. The engine must be powerful. The car must be efficient. The cooling must work. The tires must remain under control. The drivers must trust the car when the grip disappears and the pressure rises. If even one part fails, the headline number begins to lose its meaning. That is why Honda's reported development is both exciting and dangerous for Aston Martin. It raises hope, but it also raises expectations. Once fans hear about a gain as large as 40 horsepower, they no longer imagine a slow rebuilding process. They imagine victories, they imagine pole positions, they imagine Aston Martin arriving with a machine capable of frightening the established leaders. And expectations can become heavy very quickly. Because the closer a team appears to success, the less patience people have when that success does not arrive. There is another question hiding underneath all of this. Where does the reported gain actually come from? Is it pure engine strength? Is it improved electrical delivery? Is it better efficiency, allowing more performance to be used for longer? The source does not specify that detail. And without that answer, the most important part of the story remains unresolved. Because 40 horsepower available for a brief moment is one thing, 40 horsepower that can be delivered reliably, repeatedly, and intelligently across a full lap is something completely different. That is the difference between an impressive laboratory figure and a weapon that can change a championship fight. And the deeper we look, the clearer the real challenge becomes. Honda may be building the power, but Aston Martin still has to build the car that can unlock it. But now the story takes a more complicated turn. Because the moment a figure like 40 horsepower appears, every rival starts asking the same question. Is Honda really that far ahead, or are we looking at a number without the full picture? That uncertainty is exactly what makes this revelation so dangerous. Formula One teams do not normally advertise their weaknesses. They also do not reveal their strongest advantage unless there is a reason. Sometimes a number creates confidence inside a project. Sometimes it sends a warning to competitors. And sometimes it builds expectations before the car has even proved itself on the track. The source does not explain how Honda reached the reported gain. It does not say whether the figure came from a direct comparison, a simulation, a controlled test, or a particular operating condition. That missing information is not a minor detail. It is the center of the mystery. Because an engine can look extraordinary when measured in one specific moment, then become far less impressive once it has to survive the demands of a complete race. Imagine a runner who can produce one explosive sprint. For a few seconds, nobody can match that speed. But Formula One is not one short sprint. It is repeated acceleration, lap after lap, while temperatures rise, components wear, and every system inside the car is pushed toward its limit. The fastest burst means very little if it cannot be repeated. And this is where Honda's history of ambition becomes relevant to the pressure surrounding Aston Martin. The expectation is not simply that Honda will provide respectable performance. The expectation is that Honda will help create a complete works-level partnership where the engine and the car are developed around each other rather than treated as separate pieces. That sounds like an obvious advantage, but it creates a responsibility that is much harder to escape. When an independent team uses an engine built around another manufacturer's priorities, compromises are expected. The chassis may need to adapt. The cooling system may need to fit around decisions already made elsewhere. Engineers work with what they receive. A closer partnership changes that equation. Now the engine can be shaped around the car. The car can be shaped around the engine. The battery placement, cooling demands, bodywork, weight distribution, and aerodynamic philosophy can all be connected from the beginning. Think of it like building a house. It is much easier when the electrical system, plumbing, walls, and foundation are planned together, but if one part is designed late, every other part may need to change. A small mistake behind one wall can eventually affect the entire building. That is the opportunity Aston Martin has. It is also the risk, because a powerful engine does not arrive alone. It creates heat. It requires cooling. Cooling needs space. Space changes the bodywork. Bodywork changes the airflow. And airflow can decide whether the car is fast through corners or difficult to control. This is the hidden chain behind every dramatic horsepower claim. One impressive number can force dozens of other decisions. And those decisions may matter more than the number itself. Aston Martin could receive an engine with exceptional potential and still lose performance if the car needs large cooling openings. Those openings allow heat to escape, but they can also disturb the air moving around the car. It is like opening the windows of a fast-moving road car. The cabin becomes cooler, but the air no longer moves cleanly around the vehicle. Resistance increases, efficiency falls. In Formula One, the effect is far more sensitive. The team must cool the power unit without sacrificing the shape of the car. It must protect reliability without adding unnecessary weight. It must deliver electrical power without making the driver feel an unexpected drop in acceleration. And that last point could become one of the most important. Modern Formula One performance is not only about the combustion engine. It is about how mechanical power and electrical energy work together. A car can have a strong headline figure, but if the energy is delivered at the wrong moment, the driver may still feel vulnerable. The driver does not experience a spreadsheet. The driver experiences the car moving beneath them. They feel whether the power arrives smoothly. They feel whether the rear tires begin to slide. They feel whether the car keeps accelerating at the end of a straight or suddenly loses momentum when electrical support fades. That is why the real battle may not be about maximum power. It may be about usable power. Power that arrives predictably. Power that does not destroy the tires. Power that remains available when the driver is attacking, defending, or trying to complete the perfect qualifying lap. And now the 40 horsepower claim begins to look different. At first, it sounds like a simple promise of greater speed. But the deeper question is whether Honda and Aston Martin can control that speed better than everyone else. Because too much aggression can create wheel spin. Too much heat can force the team to reduce performance. Too much weight can weaken the car in slow corners. And an engine that demands too many compromises can take away as much as it gives. This is where the conflict inside the project becomes unavoidable. Honda's engineers will want to protect the power unit. Aston Martin's aerodynamic team will want the tightest, cleanest car possible. The designers will want freedom. The reliability specialists will want safety. The drivers will want immediate response and complete confidence. Every group is chasing performance, but they may not always agree on how to reach it. One department may ask for more cooling. Another may argue that larger openings will cost too much speed. One side may want to push the engine closer to its limit. Another may insist that finishing the race matters more than chasing a small gain. These disagreements do not mean the project is failing. They are part of building any serious Formula One car. But the stronger the reported engine becomes, the more difficult those decisions may be. Because nobody wants to be the department that limits the advantage. Nobody wants to admit that the car cannot fully use the power Honda has created. And nobody wants to discover, after months of work, that the number which created so much excitement only works under conditions that cannot be maintained during a Grand Prix. That possibility is what rivals will be watching. They will not only look at straight-line speed, they will watch the bodywork, they will study the cooling openings, they will listen for signs of reduced power, they will examine how the car accelerates late in a race, when temperatures are high and the components have already endured enormous stress. That is when the truth begins to appear. Not in a headline. Not in one isolated test. But when the driver presses the throttle with worn tires, a full fuel load, and another car close behind. If the Aston Martin continues to accelerate cleanly in that moment, the reported gain may be far more than marketing noise. It may be evidence that Honda has solved the hardest part. But there is still another layer. Even if Honda delivers every bit of the reported performance, Aston Martin's greatest challenge may come from something no engine can fix. And that problem begins with the car's ability to turn raw power into lap time.